Welcome back to another episode of the Gun Collective News. I'm John Patton. No, you didn't miss the intro. It wasn't there. I need you to name a gun tuber that needs this gun just to hit the target. Now, the news. We lost a legend this week. If you've been living under a rock, the previously named legendary Paul Harrell passed away this week after a long battle with cancer. We knew this was coming. He has told us this. And it's still sad to see someone that was so loved by the community pass away. I never got a chance to meet him, but from what I understand, he was a great dude, and we are absolutely diminished without him. In honor of Paul, I'm going to encourage you to increase the numbers that we're about to go over before the end of the year. The FBI background check numbers are in for August 2024. As per usual, this is not a one-to-one exchange for guns sold, but rather a trend indicator. So far this year, the trend has been sort of downward or sort of flat. Not great. But as is tradition, we start to see a slight uptick as the summer starts to end. In August, we saw just over 2.25 million background checks. This is actually up from last year's 2.14 million, which is a good sign. Reports I'm getting from across the industry is that things are down sort of across the board, I guess, with the exception of silencers. So this yearly bump for hunting and fall activity will likely be a good thing. And one last bit of industry news for you guys this week. SAR Firearms, S-A-R Firearms, aka the US side of Sarselmaz, has named a new CEO. His name is Tony Pignato. And if that name sounds familiar, that's because he is the former CEO of Staccato. It's an interesting move to go from a really premium brand to a Turkish gene pool splicer, but I'm very curious to see what he does with the brand. Because in my opinion, he played a part in changing the perception of Staccato and transitioning away from STI into Staccato. And that was a big deal, so we shall see how this turns out. And speaking of rad, here's a bit from this week's sponsor, Woox. Woox offers everything from rifle chassis to furniture for your 12 gauge, all with a big helping of beautifully finished, ultra stylish wood. They just released this new Super Leggera, aka Super Light stock for your Remington 700, Howa 1500, Tika T3, and more. I'm planning to use it as the base for a lightweight, long-action hunting rifle. Thanks again to Woox for supporting the Gun Collective. How's about some other gun-related news? P5 Systems finally dropped some AK furniture, which is neat. They've been asked about it for a long time. They finally made it happen. They've got stocks for folding and fixed guns, as well as a handguard that has some texturing on the bottom and like a bit of a hand stop in the rear. Then there's the P-grip, which is similar to the one that they do for ARs. And all of these come in black, OD green, or plum. I'm all about that plum. And they are mostly affordable. The stock's MSRP is $125, the handguard MSRP is $40, and the grip is $20 MSRP. That's pretty good all around. Norma Ammo released a new competition line called Rival in two different subsonic loads, a 147 grain FMJ and a 158 grain TMJ. Both are well under the sound barrier and should do great for all the guys that love ammo that just like barely poops out of the gun. This type of ammo is also really good for suppressor use, but they are pushing it as competition thing, which is kind of interesting. Maybe they're trying to like hide that part of it for investors so they don't get weird. I don't know. Moving on, Federal just announced their new Freight Train Polytip 12 gauge slug round. This is just in time for slug gun season, which is right around the bend. They kind of do this every year. The 12 gauge variant is a 300 grain projectile, obviously a polymer tip, and it's solid copper, while the 20 gauge is a 275, same thing. These get up to really good velocities at 2,000 and 1,900 for the 12 and 20 out of 3-inch shells. That will drop just about any game in North America that I can think of if you can connect the shot. I will say this because I think it's important for newer shooters and hunters to know. Slug guns are the most finicky type of gun out there when it comes to ammo selection. It's important that if you're going to try shotgun slug hunting this year, you acquire some ammo to practice and test your gun with. That's the only way to really know if you have a load and a gun that works well together. It really is something you should test before you go shoot. Next up this week is a company called Void 3D Armory. Their entire thing is 3D printed suppressors. We've seen that before, but instead of being metal, these are from carbon fiber nylon, I think. They just say polymer. They don't say nylon. They say polymer. But I think nylon's the only one that would really work here. That means a couple things. First, cost of entry is just way lower. The MSRP on these is $175 for the rimfire and $240 for their centerfire designs. That's incredibly low. However, it should be low because these are just not going to hold up to the same abuse that a metallic 3D printed can will. They are sort of way more delicate in that way. There are some testing videos of these things out there, but nothing more than backyard type testing, so it's unknown if there is a reasonable amount of performance and value here. I suppose time will tell. The designs look really interesting, but the jury is still a little bit out. I'd love to hear what you guys think on polymer suppressors, though. Are they a valid option? Is this something that you want to see happen? Sound off in the comments. And before I hit some rifles, it's time for the deal of the week. This one's going to be a little bit different than normal. I get asked a lot about where I got the lights on my van. I know a lot of you guys are interested in off-roading, overlanding, modding your car, truck, whatever. So I figured I'd get you guys a deal on these things. Why not? If I can, I will. If you use the code JP15 at strandsamerica.com, there's a link in the description in case you don't want to type that out, you'll get 15% off. We've tested these out in Colorado out to like 1,000 yards, and it's just flat out impressive what they're capable of. Plus, they look great. I love them. I think they're fantastic. Strands makes the round lights, but they also have light bars, they have ditch lights, work lights, a whole bunch of stuff. They've got a bunch. Again, go to strandsamerica.com, use the code JP15. You get yourself a discount. There is a video of us testing these lights as well. If you want to see that and learn a little bit about how they do, it'll be in the description as well. Okay, I promised some rifles. Weatherby, that's fun to say. Weatherby has a new one that is actually pretty interesting. It's called the Backcountry Guide TI, and it's part of their Mark V line. They're like sort of top end. Long story shorter, it's available in 12 cartridges, and it's just dripping in carbon fiber. The stock is carbon fiber, the barrel is carbon fiber, the bolt is weight reduced, and the action is made from titanium. There's also a muzzle brake and a Trigger Tech trigger in there. It's just fancy as f*** across the board. And as you can probably guess, that does come with an increase in cost. The MSRP is $3,800. We've talked about this sort of lightweight hunting rifle thing, these backcountry guns. They all kind of have that name. We've talked about that on the show before, and the more I think about it, the more I really like the idea of offsetting the weight of a can and an optic with a really, really light gun. This one in particular starts out at a little over 5 pounds. I mean, that's great. I can't afford this particular version, but it is pretty cool. On the more affordable side of the industry, Kel-Tec has done something I did not expect. And I'm not saying that, that's not like a clickbaity thing. I actually did not expect this to come out. They came out with a new version of the Sub 2000. They've taken the iconic, cheap, foldable carbine and chambered it in 5.7. With a standard 16-inch barrel, that means a bullet will actually get some decent velocity. And of course, you could run a can on there too, and most rimfire cans are good for that. The gun does come with a 20-round mag, which is an FN pattern mag, so you'll have a bunch of other options available since that's been around forever to carry even more rounds, more different magazines, things like that. And the wild part is the MSRP is $511. I believe that is the most affordable semi-auto 5.7 carbine out there. Also,